Hey guys, welcome back to Ripestories. In this malicious compliance story, imagine a new neighbor moving in and immediately pretending to be on the HOA board. She is lecturing everyone on fake rules. Now imagine she tows your car for a violation that doesn't even exist, all the while calling you a nobody. The only problem? She didn't realize she was talking to the actual HOA president. And the first Reddit story is titled r/MaliciousCompliance, new homeowner Karen calls me a nobody and tows my car. So I've been living in my neighborhood for about 15 years now, and for the last 8 of those I've been serving as the HOA president. Before anyone starts groaning about HOAs, let me just say I actually try to be one of the good ones. I don't care what color your mailbox is or if your grass is half an inch too tall. I mostly focus on keeping our common areas nice, organizing neighborhood events, and making sure people are not doing truly crazy stuff like parking RVs on their front lawns. Our HOA is pretty laid back. We have basic rules about property maintenance and parking, but I've always believed in the live and let live philosophy. If someone wants to paint their front door purple, I honestly couldn't care less. Now, about 2 years ago though, this house 3 doors down from me went up for sale. Nice place, well maintained, belonged to an elderly couple who were moving to be closer to their kids. The house sold pretty quickly, which was great for the neighborhood. What wasn't so great was who bought it. And our new neighbor, I'm gonna call her Karen because, well, if the shoe fits. Karen moved in with her husband on a Saturday, and I happened to be out front washing my car when the moving truck pulled up. So being the friendly neighbor that I am, I walked over to introduce myself and welcome them to the neighborhood. Hey there, welcome to the neighborhood. I'm your neighbor from down the street. If you need anything or have any questions about the area, please feel free to ask me. Karen looked me up and down like I was some kind of door-to-door salesman and gave me this tight-lipped smile that didn't even reach her eyes. That's nice. We are very busy right now. Okay, fair enough. Moving day is stressful. I did not take it personally and headed back to finish washing my car. Over the next few weeks, I tried a couple more times to be friendly, just small waves when I would see her getting back her mail or pulling into her driveway. She never waved back. Her husband seemed nice enough though, always gave me a quick nod, but Karen acted like the rest of us were invisible. Things started getting weird about a month after she moved in. So essentially, Karen had been going around telling people that she was on the HOA board. Now, our HOA board consists of 5 people, me as president, a vice president, a secretary, and 2 regular board members. I know everyone on that board personally because, we meet every month. Karen was definitely not one of them. The first time I heard about it was from my neighbor 2 houses down. She stopped me while I was getting my mail and asked if we had added someone new to the board. Because Karen mentioned that she's on the board now, she said. I didn't know we were expanding. I was confused too. We didn't add anyone. The board's the same 5 people it's been for 2 years. Huh? That's weird. Karen told me she was a board member when she was lecturing me about my recycling bin being visible from the street. And yeah, this already set off my alarm bells. First, we don't have any rules about recycling bins being visible, and second, why would someone lie about being on the HOA board? I decided to keep an ear out for more information. Over the next month, I heard at least 5 more stories about Karen introducing herself as an HOA board member and trying to enforce rules that didn't even exist. She even had the audacity to tell someone their children were playing too loudly in their own backyard during the middle of the afternoon. Every single time she claimed to be speaking with the authority of the HOA board, and every single time she was just making stuff up. I decided it was now time to have a conversation with her. I walked down to her house one evening, knocked on the door. Her husband answered, looking tired. Hey, I'm from down the street. Is your wife home? I wanted to chat with her about some HOA stuff. He called her to the door and she appeared with the same fake smile. I've been hearing from some neighbors that you've been telling people that you're on the HOA board, I said, trying to keep my tone friendly and non-confrontational. I wanted to clear that up because there might be some confusion. The board has not added any new members, so… And who are you exactly? She interrupted. I'm the HOA president. I have been for 8 years. Ha! You? You're the president? The guy who washes his own car in the driveway? Yeah, lots of people wash their own cars. Well, I find that very hard to believe. The president of an HOA should be someone with authority and presence, not some nobody who does manual labor on his front lawn. The way she said nobody made it clear she thought that was the ultimate insult. I was honestly too stunned to respond immediately. Her husband looked mortified and tried to say something, but she cut him off. I think you should leave now. I have actual HOA business to attend to. She shut the door in my face. I walked back to my house, equal parts angry and amused. I decided to let it go for the moment. I figured eventually she would realize her mistake. Probably when she got the newsletter that goes out with my name on it as president, or when someone corrected her. I was not gonna escalate things over her being rude and delusional. That was my mistake though. 2 weeks later I came home from work to find my car missing. I'd parked it on the street in front of Karen's house that morning because I'd had a contractor working on my driveway and needed to keep it clear. The street parking in our neighborhood is public and completely legal. We don't have any HOA rules restricting it, and it's certainly not illegal according to city ordinances. I walked down to Karen's house and knocked. She answered with this smug expression on her face. Can I help you? Did you see what happened to my car? It was parked in front of your house this morning. Oh, that eyesore? I had it towed. I stood there, genuinely speechless for a second. You had my car towed from a public street? Absolutely, it was parked illegally. HOA rules clearly state that no vehicles can be parked on the street for more than 2 hours, and yours was there all day. We don't have that rule. I would know because I'm the— Oh please, she interrupted again. You're not the HOA president. I'm on the board and I know the rules. Your car was towed to the impound lot on Morrison Street. You're welcome. She started to close the door, but I put my hand up. Wait, are you serious right now? You actually called a tow truck and had my legally parked car towed? I did what any responsible board member would do. Maybe next time you'll follow the rules. Nobody. She shut the door. I was legit furious. I pulled out my phone and called the towing company, and sure enough, they had my car. It was gonna cost me $250 to get it out, plus a daily storage fee if I didn't pick it up within 24 hours. And by the way, guys, if you would be, let's say, well, in the fortunate or unfortunate position to be an HOA president, what would you do in this situation? How would you teach this HOA Karen a lesson? And by the way, if you still enjoy the HOA stories, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for daily uploads. Thank you so much. So the tow truck driver told me they got a call from a homeowner reporting an abandoned vehicle. I paid the fee, got my car back, and spent the evening fuming. It turns out Karen had called the non-emergency police line and claimed that my car had been abandoned there for over a week, which is against city ordinance. The police authorized the tow without actually checking because they took her word for it. I could have fought it and probably won, but it would have meant filing a dispute with the city, getting evidence together, possibly even a small claims court issue. For $250 and all the hassle involved, I decided to let it go and handle this a different way. But then I had a better idea. See, Karen wanted to pretend to be on the HOA board so badly. She wanted to enforce rules that didn't even exist. Fine, I decided I would give her exactly what she wanted. A strict by-the-book HOA enforcement. But not the fake rules she had been making up, the real rules, every single one of them. I spent the next evening going through our HOA bylaws with a fine-tooth comb. Then I took a walk past Karen's house, really looking at it for the first time with an enforcement mindset, but rather than a neighborly one. Our actual rules are actually pretty minimal, but they do exist, and as I read through them and examined her property, I realized that Karen's house was in violation of at least 6 different regulations. The irony was almost too perfect. First, her garbage bins were stored on the side of her house where they were visible from the street. Our bylaws state that trash bins must be kept in a garage or behind a fence when not in use for collection. This rule exists because we had an issue years ago with raccoons getting into exposed bins and making a mess. Karen's bins were sitting right there in plain view, just begging to be cited. I took photos from the sidewalk to document it. Second, she had planted a garden in her front yard without getting HOA approval. Now, I'm generally all for people gardening, but the rule exists for a reason. Any landscaping changes to front yards require board approval to ensure they don't damage irrigation systems or interfere with utility lines. We've had issues in the past where people planted trees right over main water lines or drainage systems. Karen had dug up a section of her front lawn and put in a whole flower bed without so much as asking if there were any buried utilities there. I checked our records and sure enough she had dug within 2 feet of a main irrigation line. Luckily for her, she didn't hit it, but the rule was clear. Third, her house number was not reflective and wasn't at least 4 inches tall. This is actually a city code that we enforced through the HOA for safety reasons. Emergency services need to be able to identify houses quickly, especially at night, and Karen had replaced the numbers the previous owners had installed with these tiny decorative ones that were maybe 2 inches tall and definitely not reflective. I took photos from the sidewalk and later measured them from the photos using a reference object. 2¼ inches, violation. Fourth, she added a decorative iron fence around her front porch without architectural approval. Any external modifications require board approval, and this rule is in place to maintain some consistency in the neighborhood's appearance and to prevent people from doing things that might damage property values or create safety hazards. Karen's fence was actually kind of nice looking, but she had installed it without asking anyone, and the previous owners definitely didn't have it, which meant she had added it after moving in. Another clear violation. Fifth, she was running some kind of home business based on the stream of clients I'd seen coming and going at odd hours. Home businesses require registration with the HOA to ensure that they don't create parking or noise issues, and we don't usually prohibit them, but people need to register so we can make sure they're not causing problems for other neighbors. I had seen at least a dozen different people showing up to her house with yoga mats, so I assumed she was running some kind of fitness or wellness coaching out of her home. Perfectly fine if registered, but not fine if not. And she definitely hadn't registered anything. And sixth, the best one, she had painted her mailbox without approval. Sounds petty, I know, but it was in the bylaws, clear as day. Standard mailboxes in our neighborhood are black or dark green. Karen, however, had painted hers this bright coral pink color. The rule exists because someone tried to install a mailbox shaped like a giant fish one time, and it became a whole thing. So now any changes to mailboxes require approval. Karen's pink mailbox was definitely a change, and she definitely didn't get approval. I documented everything with photos, measurements, and citations to the specific bylaw sections. I wanted this to be completely bulletproof. If Karen wanted to claim I was making stuff up, I had evidence for every single violation she committed. I called an emergency board meeting and presented everything to the other members. They were all aware of Karen's behavior and were fully on board with my plan. We then drafted official violation notices for each infraction and sent them via certified mail, so she couldn't claim she never received them. Each notice explained the violation, cited the specific bylaw section and page number, and gave her 30 days to correct the issue or face a fine of $50 per violation per month. We also included information on how to apply for retroactive approval for the modifications she had made, with a note that approval was not guaranteed and would require a review process. The notices were professional and formal, exactly the kind of official documentation Karen had been pretending to send to other people, and I made sure that each one was properly formatted, with my signature as president clearly visible at the bottom. 3 days after the certified mail was delivered, my phone started ringing. Karen had gotten my number from the neighborhood directory. She called 4 times in 1 hour, each time more angry than the last one, but I did not answer. I let it go to voicemail and saved every message. In the messages, she called me everything from a petty tyrant to some creative insults I won't repeat here. Each voicemail was more evidence that she was not taking this well. She showed up at my door the day she got the letters. She was absolutely livid. "What the hell is this?" she shouted, waving the stacks of violation notices. "Well, those are violation notices for infractions of bylaws," I said calmly. "This is harassment. I'm on the board and I never approved these ridiculous rules." "You're not on the board. I'm the president, as I tried to tell you already. These are the actual rules that govern our neighborhood, and your property is in violation." "That is insane. Nobody follows these stupid rules." "Well, actually most people do, but since you've been so concerned about rule enforcement lately, I thought it was important to make sure everyone, including you, is in compliance." And her face turned red. "You're doing this because I had your car towed." "Well, I'm doing this because you are in violation of HOA rules, and as a president, it is my job to enforce them, right? You've been very vocal about the importance of following HOA regulations. I'm simply making sure we are all held to the same standard here." "This is petty and vindictive." "Well, you wanted strict HOA enforcement and you got it." She sputtered for a moment before storming off my porch. Over the next 30 days, I made sure to document everything. Karen refused to fix any of the violations, and she claimed they were all bogus and that she would get me removed from the board. She didn't realize that removing a board member requires a vote from the homeowners, and given how she had been treating everyone, she wasn't exactly popular. When the 30 days expired, the fines kicked in, $50 per violation per month, $300 a month total. And well, she refused to pay, claiming the fines were illegal. That is when I sent her a certified letter explaining that unpaid HOA fines could result in a lien being placed on her property. This is standard procedure and completely legal. If she continued to refuse payment, we would follow the established process. The fines would continue to accrue, late fees would be added, and eventually we could place a lien that would need to be satisfied before she could sell or refinance her home. She showed up at the next HOA meeting, which was open to all residents, and she tried to make a big speech about how I was abusing my power and that the entire board was corrupt. The problem was that about 20 other neighbors showed up to that meeting too. Normally we get maybe 5 or 6 at these things, but word had spread around that there was gonna be drama, and people showed up in big numbers. And well, every single one of these people had a story about Karen harassing them, making up fake rules, and claiming to be on the HOA board. Karen had apparently made it her personal mission to terrorize as many neighbors as possible in the short time she lived here. Every single person prefaced their story with, "She told me she was on the HOA board," or "She said she was speaking for the HOA. It was like a therapy session, and Karen was the subject. By the end of it, she was sitting in the back row with her arms crossed, looking like she wanted to disappear. Her husband was not even with her this time. I think he had had enough already. The board voted unanimously to uphold the violations and the fines. We also voted to send a neighborhood-wide email clarifying who was actually on the board and reminding everyone that only official board communications would come from our designated HOA email address, which Karen obviously didn't have access to. The email went out the next day and it didn't specifically mention Karen by name, but everyone knew who it was about. Karen paid the first month of the fines, but then continued to refuse to fix the violations. The second month she paid again, but sent a letter with her payment calling me a tyrant and threatening legal action. I filed it away with all the documentation. By month 3, more issues started popping up. Neighbors began reporting every single tiny thing Karen did wrong. She put her trash out a day early, someone reported it. She parked with her rear bumper 6 inches over her driveway into the sidewalk space, reported. Her dog barked, noise complained. I did not encourage this behavior, but I also didn't stop it. Every legitimate complaint that came in I dutifully documented and addressed according to HOA procedures. Most of them were minor and just resulted in some warning letters, but it created a paper trail a mile long of Karen's inability to follow basic neighborhood etiquette. The turning point came about 2 months after the violations were issued. Karen tried to organize a petition to have me removed as HOA president. She went door to door with a clipboard asking people to sign. Out of 87 homes in our neighborhood, she got 3 signatures. One was her own, one was her husband's, and one was from a guy who had just moved in and didn't even know what he was signing. Several neighbors started a counter-petition thanking me for my years of service. It got 42 signatures in 3 days. The final straw for Karen came during the neighborhood summer barbecue, an annual event the HOA sponsors at our community park. It's usually a great time, families bring dishes to share, we have games for kids, and everyone gets together. However, Karen showed up, which surprised me. She had been keeping a low profile after this petition disaster, and she brought a store-bought potato salad and set it on the food table without saying anything to anyone. About an hour into the event, I heard a commotion. Karen was in the middle of the park loudly telling a group of teenagers that they needed to leave. "This is a private HOA event. If you don't live in the neighborhood, you need to go." One of the dads walked over and said, "Those are my kids and they're friends from school. They're allowed to be here." "I don't care who these kids are. This is for residents only." "Well, actually," I called out from the grill, "guests are always welcome at HOA neighborhood events. It's in the bylaws under community gathering policies." Karen spun around. "You would know all about bylaws, wouldn't you?" The entire barbecue went silent. You could feel the awkwardness in the air. "Well, I would, yeah. It's kind of part of my job as president." "Your so-called job. Everyone here knows you've been harassing me for months." One of my neighbors, an older woman who lived in the neighborhood longer than anyone, stood up. "Honey, the only person who's been harassing anyone is you. You told me my rose bushes were too tall and they are roses. They grow." Her husband stayed for another hour, apologizing to people. He seemed like a genuinely nice guy stuck in a bad situation, and I felt bad for him, honestly. About 2 weeks later, I saw a for sale sign go up in front of Karen's house. It took a few months for the house to sell, and during that time, Karen barely left her house except to rush from her door to her car, avoiding eye contact with everyone. When the new owners moved in, they were a young couple with a baby, friendly, normal people, and I made sure to welcome them properly. "We heard about the previous owner," the husband said with a laugh. The realtor mentioned it might take a while for the neighborhood to warm up to us. "Well, you're not her," I said. "You'll be fine." And they were. They fit right into the neighborhood immediately. The best part, after she moved out, I called a board meeting and we voted to be even more lenient with minor violations going forward. The experience reminded us why we had kept the HOA so laid back for so long. We updated our enforcement procedures to focus on serious issues only and not annoy people with petty crap. Karen wanted rules? She got them. All of them exactly as they were written. Comment number 1, NTA, she impersonated a board member to bully neighbors, called you a nobody to your face, and then cost you $250 by towing your legally parked car. You didn't even make up fake rules like she did, you just enforced the actual contracts she signed when she bought the house. Honestly, malicious compliance is the only language people like Karen understand. The fact that she tried to petition to remove you after getting only 3 signatures, one being herself, is hilarious. And by the way guys, let me know in the comments what you think about this story. Do you think OP was acting like an a-hole here, or is he really one of the only good HOA presidents in existence? Let me know what you think in the comments. Comment number 2, YTA, I know she started it, but you basically admitted to corruption. You said yourself that the HOA is laid back and you usually live and let live regarding things like paint colors, but the moment someone bruised your ego by calling you a nobody and towing your car, you weaponized your position of power to target a specific resident. You went through the bylaws with a fine-tooth comb, as you said, just to hurt her. She sucks, but an HOA president who selectively enforces rules only when they have a personal vendetta is exactly why everyone hates HOAs. Comment number 3, everyone sucks here. She sounds unhinged for lying about being on the board and towing a car from a public street just to flex. She definitely deserved a reality check, but you totally abused your power here. You admit that you ignore rules for everyone else like purple doors, but you decided to slap her with $300 per month and fines just because you were mad. You fought fire with fire, but you basically proved that you can be the petty tyrant she accused you of being. And the next one is a fantastic malicious compliance story, which is titled Business Casual? Yes, ma'am. So I'm a male who recently moved from working inpatient to an outpatient clinic. For context, I've always worn scrubs or joggers with athletic shirts, loose, comfortable and perfect for the job, easy to clean, and not one ever commented. During my interview, shame on me, I didn't clarify attire. Considering the position is in the same organization and my job title remained the same, I figured the clothing would remain the same too. That being said, when I started at the clinic, I kept the same wardrobe. 2 weeks in, my manager told me I needed to follow the so-called business casual dress code because the clinic is patient-facing and requires a more professional appearance. She then specifically said my gym clothes were not appropriate. I politely reminded her of my hands-on clinical role, injections, wound care, patient care, which seemed to contradict wearing dress clothes, but she obviously didn't see it my way. By the way, I hate business casual. I used to work in finance and I would be damned if I ever succumbed to the corporate life again. Alas, that day I went out and bought standard chinos and button-ups. I even sized up on the pants because I'm not stupid. I know chinos fit differently, however, I'm a bigger guy. I lift regularly, I run, and baggy athletic pants or scrubs do a lot when it comes to hiding your physique. Chinos, even sized up, do not. My assets, front and back, were on full display. Day 1, I got a double take from the front desk staff. Day 2, a coworker made a comment about my pants working overtime. And by day 3, I heard at least 4 different remarks, some joking, some just awkward observations. It was not harassment in my opinion, but it was definitely noticeable that my clothing had become a topic of conversation. My supervisor stayed professional, but I could tell she was well aware of the comments. A week in, she approached me and said the clinic was revisiting the dress code for clinical roles and asked if I prefer to go back to scrubs for comfort and practicality. I smiled and said I was just following the business casual policy she asked me to follow, but sure, I'd be happy to switch back if that's what she wanted. That end of day, an email went out stating scrubs were now approved for all clinical staff. I'm back in my joggers, problem solved. And the next one is a petty revenge story, which is titled, I ate a bag of rich man's nut, so my boss would stop coming into my office and eating the rich man's nuts. So it's the holidays, so the company I work for gets a lot of gift baskets from our clients and vendors. I work in a department that, because of the work we do, rarely gets gifts and treats unless one of the other departments shares their gifts with us. Thankfully, someone shared a couple of baskets with nuts, candies, crackers, etc. The VP has been coming into our office almost every day to pick from our gift baskets. He doesn't do this to any of the other departments, and I've seen him get a couple of baskets himself and never shared them. We had an unopened basket and he opened it and then chose the most expensive item, a bag of pistachios, and ripped into it, stealing some of our pistachios. Then said, I love the rich man's nut. Famous last words. This man makes 5 times what I do. When the opportunity came for him to fight for raises for us, he didn't, and now he's coming into our office, stealing our gifts and eating our rich man's nuts. This cannot continue. So I decided I'm gonna eat every single pistachio. I don't particularly like pistachios or nuts, but I'm not gonna let him come in here and steal my rich man nut. I'm gonna eat them all to myself and enjoy every last single minute of it. So far, I've eaten 4 sleeves of nuts, the basket is now empty, my body doesn't feel good, but my pride is intact knowing I'm full of rich man nut while he cannot take any more. And yeah guys, thank you for watching, I will see you again tomorrow.